Prologue. Viv slays the monstrous Scalvert Queen, retrieving the valuable Heartstone from its corpse. Her companions, Fennis, Rune, Tyvis, and Galena, celebrate their victory, surrounded by the Queen's hoarded treasure. Fennis questions if Viv truly wants nothing more than the Heartstone, surprised she's leaving behind the vast riches entombed in the cavern. Viv confirms she's done, uninterested in loot or glory. Without explanation, she turns and walks away from the group, leaving her adventuring life behind. After 22 years of blood, mud, and violence, Viv has reached her limit. Determined to escape the brutal fate expected of an orc, she decides it's time to start a new chapter and leave the adventuring world for good. In Chapter 1, Viv arrives in Thune carrying the Scalvert Stone, her sword Blackblood, and plans for a new life. Guided by a thaumic witching rod, she searches the city's ley lines and finds an abandoned livery on Redstone Street, exactly where she feels drawn. After locating the owner, Ansem, in a tavern, Viv buys the property for 8 platinum chits, explaining she's opening a coffee shop, not a stable. She secures the deed, stores her valuables in a strongbox, and buries the Scalvert Stone beneath the shop floor, hoping it anchors good fortune. Visiting the Athenaeum, she sends 2 letters and secures a locksmith's strongbox. That night, she camps inside the dilapidated building, knowing it'll require massive work, but excited for the challenge. Despite the absurdity of opening a coffee shop in a city unfamiliar with coffee, Viv claims the space as her own, marking the beginning of her new chapter beyond adventuring. In Chapter 2, Viv wakes before dawn and walks to the shipyard, searching for someone to help renovate her new shop. She observes a solitary hob named Cal working with skilled craftsmanship on a boat and approaches him during his break. Impressed by his precision and work ethic, Viv hires Cal to help transform the old livery into a coffee house. Cal agrees after inspecting the space and discussing ideas for booths, benches, and renovations. They compile a supply list and agree to start the next day. Later, feeling the weight of solitude in a new city, Viv visits a nearby pub, eats dinner, and asks the owner about starting a business. Encouraged by his honest story of struggle and eventual success, she feels inspired. That night, Viv lies awake in the empty livery, visualizing her future cafe. With Cal's help secured, she knows the real work begins tomorrow. In Chapter 3, Viv begins clearing out the old livery with Cal's help. She hires him to place supply orders and haul debris to the midden. While working, Viv is visited by a stone fae man hinting at protection money for the local gang, the Madrigal, which she refuses. After a full day of labor and securing the roof with Cal, a shipment of coffee beans arrives from Azimuth, deepening Viv's excitement for her future cafe. Cal suggests adding a kitchen in case the coffee business fails. Later, Viv chats with Lainey, who warns her not to cross the Madrigal. Despite the warning, Viv remains determined to stand her ground. That night, Viv reflects on the smell of coffee, the looming threat of the Madrigal, and her old life as a warrior. She resists falling back on old habits, choosing instead to focus on her new path, building the cafe and a life beyond violence. In Chapter 4, Viv and Cal work tirelessly to renovate the old livery into a cafe. They repair the roof, replace rotten timbers, build booths, install windows, and convert the office into a pantry with cold storage. Cal suggests displaying Viv's sword for protection after a threatening visit from Lack, a representative of the Madrigal gang who demands protection money. Viv refuses, but Cal warns her about the risk of retaliation. Cal surprises Viv by buying a stove for heating and backup cooking. Together, they install it and test it by brewing coffee, which even skeptical Cal admits isn't bad. Despite the looming threat of the Madrigal, Viv feels a growing sense of accomplishment. The cafe finally begins to take shape, reflecting Viv's dream of a new life. They joke about coffee terms and naming the shop, strengthening their friendship as they near the end of the first phase of their venture. In Chapter 5, Viv posts a job notice seeking an assistant for her upcoming coffee shop. Despite doubts, she relies on the Scalvert Stone's luck. After waiting anxiously for a response, a succubus named Tandri arrives unexpectedly, expressing interest in the assistant role despite lacking food service experience. Their initial awkward conversation addresses misconceptions about succubi, but they agree on wages and the job begins. Viv feels she's gained a partner rather than just help. Meanwhile, Viv reflects on the arrival of an important delivery she's awaiting and senses movement on her rooftop late at night, though she finds no source. The chapter establishes the start of Viv's new business with Tandri's assistance and hints at looming unknown events. In Chapter 6, Tandri arrives as Viv's assistant, ready to work despite not yet knowing the specifics of the job. Viv plans to furnish the shop, and Tandri advises her to visit the weekly Thune market, guiding her through purchases of dishware, furniture, and decorations. Their business dealings reveal Tandri's skill in negotiation and her subtle influence over merchants. After a productive shopping day, they share a meal and discuss their pasts. Viv reveals her reason for choosing. Thune relates to research and coffee. Later, Viv's old friend Rune arrives with a mysterious crate containing a complex coffee machine. He offers to help and gives Viv a magical blinkstone for emergencies. After Rune leaves, Viv and Tandri inspect the machine and successfully operate it for the first time, brewing coffee. Tandri's impressed reaction gives Viv hope that her new venture may succeed. In Chapter 7, Viv shows Cal the gnomish coffee machine and introduces him to Tandri. They begin setting up the shop by hanging lanterns, arranging tables, and unpacking deliveries. Cal surprises Viv by crafting and presenting a wooden sign for the shop, which she gladly accepts. Viv demonstrates making a latte to Cal and Tandri, who are both initially skeptical but end up enjoying it. They discuss the challenge of introducing coffee to the city and plan a dry run opening to test interest. Lainey visits, bringing a baked good that turns out inedible, adding a touch of humor. After completing the setup, Cal departs to return to his work but promises to visit. Later, Viv decorates the shop, including hanging her great sword Blackblood as a symbol of her past. Tandri and Viv discuss the transition from warrior life to business. The chapter ends with them discovering Lainey's cake mysteriously vanished. In Chapter 8, Viv opens Legends and Lattes but receives no customers, revealing the challenge of attracting people to a new, unfamiliar product. Tandri practices making coffee and proposes a marketing plan featuring a grand opening event with posters and street signs to draw attention. Viv agrees and funds the effort. They create signs and place them strategically around town. Meanwhile, Viv continues to worry about the looming pressure from the Madrigal's representative, Lack, who visits with his enforcers to remind her of an upcoming payment. Despite the threat, Viv remains determined. Tandri departs after finishing the signs, and Viv removes the open sign, acknowledging the slow start. Alone, she reflects on the uncertainty of success and the weight of responsibility clutching the Blinkstone Rune gave her. The chapter highlights the struggle of launching the business amid external pressures and the need for community awareness to build clientele. In Chapter 9, Viv nervously opens Legends and Lattes, offering free samples to attract customers. 3 early visitors, a dock worker, washerwoman, and a ratkin baker, try the coffee, with mixed reactions. The washerwoman enjoys it, the dock worker remains skeptical, and the ratkin quietly appreciates the drink. Tandri praises Viv's hand-printed menu and plans to improve it with a slate and chalk for better visibility. Throughout the morning, more early risers trickle in, drawn by the aroma and atmosphere. A young, well-off student from the Thamic Academy arrives but only studies books without buying anything. To take action, Viv ventures into the trade district to buy supplies for better signage. Tandri then creates an artistic slate menu to display in the shop, hoping to attract more customers. Though business remains slow, both are optimistic, deciding to continue offering free samples and wait for repeat visitors, understanding that building a clientele will take time. In Chapter 10, Legends and Lattes sees returning customers, including the washerwoman and the ratkin who bring friends, slowly building a small clientele. Tandri updates the menu with a free sample today line to attract more visitors. The persistent student Hemington returns, occupying a booth to study ley lines and their unusual readings near the shop, likely influenced by the hidden Scalvert stone. Despite his reluctance to drink, Tandri offers him a free sample and hints at future food offerings to encourage sales. A large dire cat mysteriously appears in the shop, calming tensions and becoming the unofficial mascot, named Amity. The arrival of Viv's old rival, the elf Fennis, brings tension. He visits under the guise of congratulating Viv, but clearly carries an undercurrent of rivalry. The dire cat's presence unsettles Fennis, who leaves soon after. Tandri and Viv discuss the encounter, suspecting Fennis had ulterior motives beyond mere congratulations. In Chapter 11, Viv and Tandri remove the free sample promotions as customers begin paying for their drinks, marking a milestone in their business. Cal visits, quietly supporting them. Viv approaches Thimble, the Ratkin regular, to ask if he can bake. He agrees to start the next day. The student Hemington returns to the cafe but avoids drinking and leaves quickly. Kellen, a wealthy and unwelcome suitor of Tandri, arrives, claiming ties to the Madrigal gang and warning Viv she will have to pay dues. Viv firmly refuses service and stands her ground, with the dire cat Amity intimidating Kellen into leaving but warning of future encounters. Tandri reveals Kellen's obsession with her. To accommodate Amity, they prepare a bed for the dire cat in the shop. Finally, Thimble brings a cinnamon roll, impressing Viv and Tandri enough that they hire him as the cafe's baker, offering him free coffee in exchange. In Chapter 12, Thimble arrives with a parchment list of baking ingredients and supplies needed to make cinnamon rolls. Viv and Tandri agree to help him gather the items, with Thimble leading the way through the city to various merchants and shops. After a long morning of shopping, they return to the cafe, where Thimble eagerly begins baking. He kneads dough, prepares cinnamon filling, and bakes the rolls in the stove, filling the shop with a delicious aroma that attracts customers. A carpenter enters, drawn by the smell, and orders a drink. Laney praises Thimble's baking, reassuring Viv and Tandri. After selling all the rolls quickly, they raise the price to 4 copper bits each, which Tandri insists on. Even Hemington buys a roll despite his dietary restrictions. The chapter ends with Thimble happily preparing another batch as the cafe's business shows promising growth. In Chapter 13, Thimble's baking draws a large morning crowd with his cinnamon rolls selling out quickly. He suggests getting a bigger stove to meet demand, though space is tight. Viv and Tandri observe their growing success, feeling the business finally click. Later, a farmhand named Pendry nervously asks to perform music in the cafe. Despite his anxiety, he plays a strange, loud lute that unsettles patrons, causing him to abruptly stop and flee. As demand for baked goods slows, Viv sends a tired Thimble home to rest. Tandri notices an elderly gnome quietly playing chess alone in the cafe, with the shop's dire cat Amity resting nearby. The gnome seems to be playing both sides of the game unseen. Tandri and Viv are intrigued by the mysterious visitor. Shortly after, 2 gate wardens arrive and buy the remaining cinnamon rolls, shifting focus away from the gnome. In Chapter 14, Thimble brings a new list of ingredients including currants, walnuts, oranges, and cardamom to expand his baking. Viv undertakes a shopping trip to gather these items, eventually securing cardamom from a surly old man. Back at the cafe, Thimble uses the ingredients to create a new pastry, mixing nuts, fruits, and spices into a dough that he bakes twice. Though initially skeptical due to the hard appearance, Viv and Tandri find the finished product flavorful, especially when paired with a latte. Tandri updates the menu with a new item named Thimblets. Meanwhile, Cal returns with a gnomish auto-circulator to cool the kitchen stove area, a costly but welcomed addition that they install despite some confusion. The chapter ends with the cafe temporarily closed for installation, but hopeful for improved conditions. In Chapter 15, the new gnomish auto-circulator improves the cafe's kitchen, bringing relief to Thimble and staff. The business atmosphere feels warm and successful. Pendry, the nervous bard, returns with a traditional lute and plays a gentle original ballad that captivates the customers. Later, Hemington visits again, awkwardly ordering many items and asking permission to lay an anima proximity ward in the shop to study ley line effects. Viv reluctantly agrees, wary of potential risks, but hopeful it won't expose the hidden Scalvert stone beneath the floor. As the day ends, Lack returns with armed men demanding the monthly payment for magical protection. Viv stands firm, refusing to be intimidated, and tensions rise when Lack reprimands his own follower for insolence. After they leave, Viv reflects with Tandri on the threat and the cost of defending her new life. Alone, Viv tosses the blinkstone into the stove and struggles to sleep. In Chapter 16, Viv's old crew, Rune, Galena, and Tyvis, arrive at the cafe to reconnect. Viv introduces them to Tandri, her new co-worker, and explains her desire to avoid violence despite local threats. She hopes the presence of her greatsword Blackblood, as a warning, will deter trouble without needing to fight. The group debates whether Viv should pay protection money to the Madrigal or handle the threat through force. Tyvis suggests a possible peaceful parley with the Madrigal, promising to arrange contact by the next day. Despite reluctance, Viv admits she is not ready to resort to violence or pay up yet. The dire cat Amity arrives, lightening the mood as it interacts with the group. After the meeting, Tandri apologizes for her earlier bluntness. Viv acknowledges her truth, but expresses uncertainty about fully letting go of her violent past. The chapter ends with a tentative understanding between them. In Chapter 17, Viv and Tandri work smoothly together, easing tensions from prior events. Pendry returns, playing music that gradually warms the cafe's atmosphere. A mysterious elderly gnome arrives to play chess and enjoy the cafe's offerings, while Tandri grows anxious about an unseen visitor. Cal observes the cafe's stability and hints at upcoming changes, which Tandri quickly addresses by replenishing supplies. Later, Viv meets Galina for dinner, rekindling their friendship. Galina urges Viv to prepare for potential danger, offering knives for protection, but Viv declines, wanting to avoid violence. Galina warns Viv about Fennis's recent strange behavior, advising caution. Back at the shop, Tandri reveals her succubus nature and senses deeper threats surrounding Viv, suggesting the situation is more dangerous than it appears. Viv admits she's keeping secrets, but doubts the madrigal know about them. They agree to stay cautious, and Tandri accepts Viv's offer for a safe walk home. In Chapter 18, Viv continues her friendly exchanges with neighbor Lainey, who encourages her to have a partner. Tyvus delivers a parchment confirming Viv's meeting with the madrigal. Viv and Tandri discuss the upcoming meeting. Viv insists she won't have Tandri follow, expecting to be blindfolded and taken far from the location. Viv gives Tandri spare keys for the shop and strongbox in case something goes wrong. At the meeting site, Viv is blindfolded and led into a cozy room where the madrigal, a regal, elderly woman, awaits. The madrigal acknowledges knowing much about Viv through mutual contacts, including Fennis and Tyvus. She directly inquires about the Scalvert stone Viv keeps hidden. Viv admits to possessing it, but doubts its full power or usefulness. The madrigal reveals respect for Viv's accomplishments, rebuilding the livery into a successful business. They discuss monthly dues, which Viv prefers not to pay. The madrigal proposes a deal, which Viv accepts, shaking hands to seal it. In Chapter 19, Viv explains the Scalvert stone to Tandri, revealing its mythical significance and its hiding place beneath the shop's flagstone. They discuss Fennis's betrayal, suspecting he tipped off the madrigal to the stone, but was also at odds with her. Despite the madrigal's interest, she hasn't seized the stone, possibly due to personal reasons. Viv shares that she reached an arrangement with the madrigal involving weekly payments, which she suspects cover protection. Thimble brings ice from the gnomish gasworks, inspiring Viv to create a new iced coffee drink, which Hemington surprisingly enjoys. Viv asks Hemington to set a ward for a specific person, hinting at protective measures. The calm breaks when Kellen arrives, confronts Tandri, and challenges Viv's authority. Viv asserts her recent deal with the madrigal and warns Kellen against causing trouble. Kellen leaves reluctantly. Tandri adds an iced coffee menu item while Viv senses looming danger, recalling a warning about poisoned drinks and blades. In Chapter 20, Viv encounters Durius, an elderly gnome and retired adventurer who praises her coffee shop as a peaceful haven. Tandri and Viv sample a new treat, chocolate slabs, made by Thimble, who shares his next supply list, showing his growing ambitions. Kellen returns to deliver a package for the madrigal, receiving it with nervous gratitude before quickly leaving upon seeing Viv. Later, Tandri nervously suggests celebrating Viv's recent progress with a simple picnic by the river. During their time together, Tandri reveals she fled the university due to discrimination despite being admitted. Viv supports her with a candid affirmation. After sharing brandy and conversation, the two walk Tandri home. Inside her modest room, Tandri shows Viv where she stayed during her studies. Viv thanks her and expresses hope she never causes Tandri to flee again, ending the chapter on a quiet, heartfelt note. In Chapter 21, Viv and Tandri work quietly in the cafe as Thimble unveils his latest creation, chocolate-filled crescent pastries, which quickly sell out and impress both women. Hemington arrives to confirm the protective ward is nearly complete and requests an iced coffee. He performs a magical ritual linking their hands to activate the ward, which will alert Viv if triggered. Pendry returns with a new thaumic lute, playing more confidently and charming the customers. The cafe's atmosphere grows warm and lively. Viv notices Amity, the dire cat, observing the patrons with disdain, but feels comforted by her presence. Tandri proposes a new idea, selling personalized mugs for customers to use and return, adding convenience and community spirit. Viv affirms Tandri's growing importance in the business and friendship, though she struggles to fully express her feelings. The chapter ends with a tentative sense of belonging and partnership between them. In Chapter 22, Viv commits to buying Thimble a new, expensive stove despite her dwindling funds, believing he deserves the best. Lack arrives to collect the Madrigal's weekly tribute, accepting the goods Viv provides. Tandri gains confidence when Viv offers him paid, regular gigs, and a new sign is posted outside the shop advertising live music. Later that night, Viv senses danger and discovers Fennis stealthily inside, inspecting the Scalvert stone hidden beneath the floor. They confront each other. Fennis accuses Viv of deceit and claims the others are unaware of her actions. Their tense exchange is cut short when Amity, the dire cat, attacks Fennis, forcing him to flee. Viv reflects on the stone's role in her growing fortune and wonders what would happen if she lost it, questioning her identity without it. She also contemplates Tandri and the possibility that the shop may not define her entire life. In Chapter 23, Viv reveals to Tandri that Fennis tried to steal the Scalvert stone during the night but failed. They discuss the ward set by Hemington, now spent, and agree it won't stop Fennis's next move, which could be more dangerous. Tandri explains the concept of arcane reciprocity, suggesting removing the stone might trigger a backlash. Viv contemplates hiding or discarding the stone, but doubts its effectiveness and fears the consequences. As Viv's anxiety grows, she becomes short-tempered, though life slowly returns to routine with Pendry's growing performances and Amity the Dire Cat's comforting presence. The Madrigal visits, issuing a veiled warning about vigilance. Tandri warns Viv not to face the threat alone. That night, Viv reluctantly accepts Tandri's offer to stay for safety. Their shared space and quiet companionship bring Viv comfort, allowing her to sleep peacefully for the first time in a long while. In Chapter 24, Viv and Tandri start the day peacefully with coffee and morning routines, but the calm breaks as the day progresses. Cal advises Viv that installing a second stove for Thimble might overcrowd the space and suggests she may need a bigger location. They plan to build a small stage for the bard Pendry. That night, a sudden supernatural fire engulfs the shop, burning with eerie green flames that resist water and breakage. Viv and Tandri struggle to escape. Viv uses a bench to free the burning crossbeam blocking the door. She rescues Tandri from the flames and makes a second trip inside to save the lockbox and coffee machine. The shop collapses in fiery ruins, with the roof and windows destroyed. Despite their losses, Viv and Tandri find solace in their survival, though the damage threatens the future of Viv's coffee business and the hidden Scalvert stone beneath the floor. In Chapter 25, the cafe burns to the ground despite the efforts of gate wardens and ignomancers who contain the magical flames but cannot save the building. Viv, severely burned and overwhelmed by despair, refuses to leave until she checks the hidden Scalvert stone, only to find it missing. Tandri and Laney offer support, while Lack, representing the Madrigal, silently provides fresh clothing. Cal helps salvage the coffee machine and lockbox. After resting briefly at Tandri's home, Viv returns to the ruins to retrieve her greatsword Blackblood, now warped and cracked from the intense fire. Holding the damaged blade, Viv acknowledges the destruction of her past life and symbolically discards the sword into the ashes. The fire has erased the bridge to her old world, leaving her to confront an uncertain future without her cafe or weapon, feeling isolated and empty. In Chapter 26, Viv recovers in Tandri's room, reluctant to rest fully and hiding her vulnerability. Cal visits, urging her to begin rebuilding the cafe despite limited funds and the loss of most savings. Tandri supports Viv, reminding her of her earlier words that they hadn't lost everything. Viv struggles with despair and thoughts of fleeing, but finds comfort in Tandri's presence and a shared kiss. They start clearing debris with help from Pendry, who joins the effort despite not being paid. Cal brings stones and bricks for reconstruction, presenting detailed plans to improve the building, including adding a larger kitchen with 2 ovens. Viv proposes further changes, and Cal agrees. Hemington returns, offering to add magical wards to the foundation for fire protection. The team works together, bolstered by small kindnesses like Thimble's food contributions and Laney's advice. The rebuilding begins with hope despite the losses, as they prepare for a stronger future. In Chapter 27, Viv and Cal continue rebuilding the shop's structure, receiving an anonymous delivery of clay tiles, likely sent by Lack and his associates. With help from Pendry, Tandri, and others, they frame the building, install a proper staircase, add more windows, and prepare for new stoves and a larger kitchen. Thimble delivers daily treats, and Amity the Dire Cat surveys the progress. As autumn nears, Viv contemplates repaying her unseen benefactors, but remains living with Tandri, reluctant to leave. The elderly gnome Durius visits, recognizing the Scalvert stone and explaining it, draws together a destined group rather than granting fortune. Later, Rune and Galena arrive with 2 ovens sent by Tandri, revealing their awareness of the stone's significance and tension regarding Fennis, who has disappeared after falling out with them. Galena urges a preemptive strike against threats, but Viv and Tandri remain cautious, hoping the stone's power will influence events. The team prepares to reopen stronger than before. In Chapter 28, autumn deepens as Viv and her team prepare for the shop's reopening. They complete finishing tasks, refitting lanterns, installing ovens, mounting auto-circulators, and staining furniture. Viv secures a loan from Galena to place special orders. Cal and Tandri assist with final touches. Pendry continues to visit occasionally. Delivery arrives with dwarves assembling equipment efficiently. Viv brews coffee, savoring a moment of peace before Cal and Tandri arrive carrying a wrapped parcel, the restored shop sign with Blackblood's metal sword mounted. Tandri explains she saved the sword as a symbol of Viv's past and present. On reopening day, the shop fills with eager customers, including Hemington, who remarks on the changed atmosphere and ongoing ley line fluctuations. Pendry performs music amplified by a new device. The Madrigal visits, praising the shop's progress and warning about the arsonist's absence. Durius the gnome returns, optimistic about the shop and the broader situation, while Viv reflects on the uncertain future. In Chapter 29, after closing the shop for the day, Viv gathers her friends, Tandri, Cal, and Thimble, to express heartfelt gratitude for their support in rebuilding the business. She presents writs of equal partnership, offering them ownership stakes in the shop. Though Cal initially resists signing since he isn't formally employed, he is persuaded by Viv and Tandri and eventually marks the document. To celebrate, Viv pours brandy for everyone, toasting to all that the flames could not consume. Later, Viv shows Tandri the new upstairs rooms, a furnished bedroom for herself and a second room set up for Tandri complete with art supplies. The chapter closes with an intimate moment between them as Tandri embraces Viv, confirming their deepening connection without words. The chapter highlights the solidifying of both business and personal bonds after their shared trials. Epilogue: Fennis returns to Thune, troubled by recent events and the fire that destroyed Viv's shop. Although relieved Viv survived, he faces the disapproval of former comrades, Rune, Tyvis, and Galena. Rumors of the shop's reopening and doubts about the Scalvert stone's true power bring him back to investigate. While carrying the stone hidden beneath his tunic, he encounters Lack, a lackey of the Madrigal, who warns him of persistent interest in the stone. Fennis readies his glowing rapier, but evades the confrontation by leaping onto rooftops, escaping Madrigal's men who surround the streets below. As he contemplates his next move, an enormous, fierce creature, Amity, the dire cat, suddenly attacks, leaping at him with deadly intent, ending the chapter on a tense cliffhanger.